This is Steve Jesson's Retromix on K2K Radio. It's a very special edition this week. We're going to be spending 2 hours in the company of Annabel Lamb. It was a very great pleasure to talk to her in the studios of K2K. We discussed her entire career. I'm going to be playing tracks covering the entire 35 years of her recording output. And to start things off, a major influence on her were The Doors. And perversely, this is The End.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end. No safety or surprise, the end. I'll never look into your eyes again. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free? Desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land. Lost in a romance, wilderness of pain, and all the children are insane. All the children are insane. Waiting for the summer rain, yeah. There's danger on the edge of town. Ride the King's Highway, baby. Weird scenes inside the gold mine. Ride the highway west, baby. Ride the snake, ride the snake to the lake, the ancient lake, baby. The snake is long, 7 miles. Ride the a snake. He's old and his skin is cold. The West is the best. The West is the best. Get here and we'll do the rest. The blue bus is calling us. The blue bus is calling us. Driver, where you taking us? The killer awoke before dawn. He put his boots on. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he walked on down the hall. He went into the room where his sister lived, and then he paid a visit to his brother, and then he walked on down the hall, and he came to a door, and he looked inside. Father, yes, son, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to. Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us and meet me at the back of the blue bus. Do not blue rock on the blue bus. Do not come on, yeah. This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end. It hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. The end of laughter and soft lies. The end of nights we tried to die. This is the end.
Now it's time for something very special on Steve Jesson's Retromix. It's my very great pleasure to welcome to K2K Radio an artist whose long and varied career shows complete dedication to the art of songwriting, about 3,000 at the last count, and the love of music in all its various forms. She is about to release her first album in 20 years, and there will be an exclusive preview at the end of the show. You may remember the hit version of Riders on the Storm in the 80s, but there is a lot more to the story than that, as we are about to hear. Welcome, Annabel Lamb.
Hi.
Hello.
It's so lovely to be here.
It's lovely to see you. So looking across your whole catalogue, the thing that strikes me initially is the diversity and the willingness to embrace such a range of moods and styles. And do you think that comes from being exposed to lots of different music in your formative years?
Definitely. I think the main thing is that I think we were talking about this earlier. I was exposed to a lot of music that I probably wouldn't have heard had I been an oldest child or an only child, because I was the youngest of lots of girls. And so my older sisters, I was listening to the Rolling Stones when I was 5. So that stuff came up for me very early. And I was learning piano from the age of 5, which was something of a problem because I was learning classical piano and I wanted to play Elton John songs. But my sisters introduced me to a great deal of music. So as I was growing up, by the time I was, 8 or 9, I'd probably heard right across the spectrum of everything. My father loved jazz. So I was listening to the Ink Spots and Hoagie Carmichael. I was learning classical piano, so loving Mozart, loving Beethoven, but not really wanting to play it. And hearing Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles through my sisters. And Joan Baez and, so much stuff. And country music as well at that time, Patsy Cline, stuff that my mother loved.
And that was to come back into your career at a later stage, the country side. Yes,
so it was diverse right from day one.
Yeah.
And because I just loved music, I was never stuck on a style. Obviously, when you're a teenager, and my great coup as a teenager was introducing my sisters to David Bowie. And I was a huge David Bowie fan from the off, but the fact that I discovered him for myself and told them about him was a major thing for me.
Yeah.
I think by the time I was in my teens, like all teenagers, you're into fashion, you're into what your friends are listening to, but I never really got into that. I was always slightly apart from all that because I had decided already I like this or that, and I wasn't going to be influenced by the herd. I wasn't really interested, and I was already writing songs by then and joining bands. So I think the first band I joined, we did a lot of folk music. Which again I loved as well. Yeah. So it was actually really difficult. Even by the time I came to sign to A&M, which was a lot later, to decide what I wanted to do first. And I do remember when Once Bitten came out, we had a thing called a playback, where the poor artist, I didn't know they did this, is in the room while the whole record company, all the executives come and listen to the damn thing. And you have sandwiches. It's awful. I just wanted to get under the desk and hide or go to the ladies or something. But you have to sit there and listen to your whole album and watch people's reaction to it.
Oh, my God.
Your record company's reaction to it.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of it, Derek Green, who was then head of A&M, went, "Oh, hooray, another jazz album."
Oh, my God. What a
Which is
reaction.
really funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, A&M was the Rolls Royce of the independents. I had no idea A&M Records was an independent record label. I thought it was a major because it was seen as a major.
I thought it was. Yeah.
I did too. But I was in fantastic company, you know. I was very lucky to be signed. I had no idea at the time how lucky I was.
Yeah.
Because for an artist like me,
Yeah.
it was the perfect home.
Sure. And so you mentioned there sort of growing up in the 60s and being influenced by the folk scene of the time. It was very much the era of the folk artists, people like Dylan, Joni Mitchell later on. Yeah. And you joined your first band around, what, the age of 15, that sort of age?
Yeah, I think I fancied the bass player or something of that nature. Yes, I did. And we were a covers band, and we used to do a lot of, we covered a lot of Fairport Convention songs. I loved Fairport Convention. Loved that stuff. Yeah. I loved Fotheringay. I loved all those people, and I think those voices very much influenced me. Joan Baez, all that stuff. You know, it was very much that era. Yeah. And Sandy Denny was a huge heroine of mine. Loved her voice, loved the way she sang, and learned all the songs. I can still sing Matty Groves from start to finish, from memory. You know, it was.
It's ingrained into your brain.
Yeah, it's ingrained. Yeah. And of course, as time went on, a lot of the kids or youngsters in those bands with me went on to uni or whatever they did. But right from moment one, I couldn't understand why they didn't all want to be professional musicians. It didn't make any sense to me. Right. Because, you'd grown up in that environment. It was completely natural to you. I decided that's what I wanted to do. You were treading your own path and not being influenced too much about trends. No, not really. Which I think follows your whole career. Well, I just couldn't decide what I liked best, and I didn't feel like I had to. Absolutely. And that was really good, actually. It was really nice to be able to do that. Yeah. Talking of the folk scene, I believe that Ralph McTell was actually a friend of the family. He was a friend of the family. Ralph and his wife, Nana, and their little boy, Sam, used to be around with us. And I can remember as a child, my sister, Jennifer, knew him very well. And she knew Jackie and Pentangle very well. And they were good friends. And, you know, we'd have Long John Baldry lying on the lawn. Wow. and Ralph McTell hanging out. I didn't know who they were. I was a little girl, a little thing. But he taught me to play Streets of London on the piano. Yeah, I know. And, of course, I didn't know who he was until very much later. Yeah. And then I went, oh, it's him. That's that guy who used to hang out on our lawn. And so youngest of 5 sisters. So did you feel that sort of put you in a special position in terms of obviously being influenced by your older sisters and their tastes? They brought a lot of exposure to certain kinds of music to yourself. Very much so, because of course they were all quite different. Yeah. Modern rockers. Yeah. My sister Rosemary was very into Tom Jones. Right. My sister Jennifer was very into the Rolling Stones. And into folk music. And particularly Bob Dylan. Yeah. So, you know, that's where it all came from. And I think that's what gave me the freedom to be able to just pick and choose. I never felt any particular need to say what I like best. Sure. And I still don't. No. And as the little one, the little one's always running along behind and being adored and ignored. You know, it's like, oh, we love you, but go away. But I can remember, you know, sometimes you'd sit on the landing at our house and there'd be different music coming out of every bedroom. Right. And I loved that. Yeah. I just thought that was the best. Yeah. And then I'd go downstairs and play the piano. And I used to put all the lights on in the dining room and pretend I was on stage. And my mother would be in the kitchen cooking for all these hordes. And she'd say, play for me, play and sing for me. And I did. And in fact, I know you've got a song this time I think you're going to have, yes, at the very end of the show. Off the new album, but there is a song on that album that I wrote around that time. It's called The Seal's Lullaby, and in fact, I co-wrote it with Rudyard Kipling, which is something I love saying, because as well as being very into music, I was an avid reader. I was a big reader, still am. And you know, Kipling's known by children for, you know, the Just So stories and Mowgli and the Jungle Book and all that. But there was a wonderful book that had some short stories in it, and in there was a thing called The Seal's Lullaby, and there was a story called The White Seal, which I loved. And The Seal's Lullaby was this fantastic poem that he wrote. And I must have been 10 or 11 when I set it to music. And we put it on this album.
Wow.
After all these years. And it sounds absolutely beautiful. I'm really, really pleased with it. So, yeah, I mean, that started way back then.
Oh, wow. So it's come full circle. In a
Yeah,
way.
very much
Amazing.
so. Very much.
So just before we leave sort of that period behind, I was reading your... there's an official press release on the website, and there was a wonderful story about... when your father sat you on top of a washing machine, I believe. I know,
Fridge it was.
A fridge. I'm so sorry. Wrong white good.
Picked me up and sat me on
yeah.
the fridge, and he said to me, "I'm going to play you a piece of music,
Yeah.
and I want you to tell me what it makes you think of." And this was a key moment in my life about imagery
Okay.
and the way music can make you see a picture. And he put the music on. He said, "Close your eyes and listen." And I listened. And when it was over, I opened my eyes and he said, "So what did you think of?" And I said, "It made me think of the sea, Daddy. It made me think of the sea and ships." And it was Debussy's La Mer. And he told me the title, and the La Mer meant the sea in French. And that influenced me from then on. I've never forgotten that key moment. And of course, he was absolutely thrilled that I got the right answer. He wanted me to say that. But it was completely true that that music created that picture in my head.
Yes.
So Debussy had done his job.
Excellent.
And I wanted to do that job too from then on.
That's an amazing way to leave that time behind. So thank you for sharing that with us. So I think what we should do is we should play maybe a couple of pieces of music that influenced you in your formative years. So was there any particular piece of music that sort of came from your sister's record collection, or, you know, that type of... that time that we were referring to?
There was a lot, actually. I would say, if we're going to talk the Beatles, I loved Fool on the Hill. Fool on the Hill did something to my body. Music does something to my skeleton when I like it. It makes me, I'm like a tuning fork. And Fool on the Hill did that to me. And then there's another little-known Beatles song called Mother Nature's Son.
From the White Album?
That I absolutely love, loved that song. And if we're going even further back, I suppose, my sisters, any Jethro Tull, you know, my sisters were very into Jethro Tull. And I remember hearing Elvis's Love Me Tender for the first time on the radio and going, oh my God. You know, I think my sister Rosemary played me that. And then Dionne Warwick, I don't know how we say it now, Dionne Warwick. She used to say a little prayer.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Nice choice.
And even further back than that, we're talking The Locomotion, Little Eva.
Yeah.
I love that song. I used to dance to that song. Downtown, Petula Clark really got me.
Yeah.
And My Boy Lollipop. I mean, you could...
So many.
You know, the list is endless, but there were lots of things. And I also remember the first time I heard Crazy by Patsy Cline, and I just stopped in the middle of the street. It was coming out of a record shop. I went, what is that? You know, so these were the things growing up, things like the Everly Brothers, the Walker Brothers. I mean, you know,
harmonies,
I could
voices.
go on. Harmonies, voices, yeah. Something that got me, you know, and that's why when I first heard David Bowie and actually Jim Morrison, you know, when you hear that way they sing, you know.
Absolutely. So we'll come on to Jim Morrison later on, but I think let's go back to a couple of your choices. I think we're going to start with the Beatles there, and Mother Nature's Son is a great choice. Here it is.
Strands of light upon a bedroom floor change the night through an open door. I'm awake, but this is not my home. For the first time I'm not alone. Reaching out, I touch another skin. Breathing out as he is breathing in. Deep inside I feel myself the flame. Can my life ever be the same? Should have told him I'd do anything if I could hold him for just another day. For just another day. His love is something I will not forget. When I am far away, when I am far away, I feel the rainfall of another planet, another planet. Close together in the afterglow, I remember how his love flowed. Turned the key into another world. Made a woman of a simple girl. Daylight comes as we both know it must. Soon my fantasies will turn to dust. But I would give him anything he asked. If my first love could be my last. Should have told him I'd do anything if I could hold him for just another day. For just another day. His love is something I will not regret. When I am far away, when I am far away, I feel the rainfall of another planet. When I am far away, when I am far away, I feel the rainfall of another planet, another planet.
Kilburn to Kensal, that's the ticket.
So you heard the Beatles, Mother Nature's Son, followed by Kiki D and Amoureuse. And you were telling me earlier, Annabel, that you're very good friends with Kiki.
Yes, I'm very, very lucky to be good friends with Kiki. She's someone I was a huge fan of anyway. And growing up listening to Amoureuse, you know, when I finally met Kiki, it's not often I'm lost for words, but I used to work a lot at a venue called the Kashmir Club, which was just off Baker Street. It was a wonderful live, open mic venue. And my partner at the time, Dave, was the engineer there. And some of the acts that played would be looking for someone to sing backing vocals for them. So I was the kind of in-house backing vocalist. And Kiki had just started doing her new format with Carmela Leggeri, her guitar player. So she'd kind of pared down all the hits and the songs that she'd done in the past and done these beautiful acoustic arrangements of them. And they came down to the Kashmir to play, and I was just like in heaven. And I think it was the third time they played. I had played a set of my stuff, I think the last time they'd been there. And she asked me if I would sing backing vocals with her. And we sang together, and she just said, our voices work so well together. Would I be willing to sing with her? Well, I kind of went, nah, you're right. But I was just absolutely so thrilled. Mm-hmm. You couldn't have asked me to do a thing I would want to do more. And so I started touring with them. And we became very, very good friends and are to this day, yes. And I'd love to do some more with her.
Yeah, and you've guested on one of her albums, I believe, and
yes,
she's
right.
returned the favour with
yes,
yourself on the new
has.
album.
I know, I'm so lucky. It was just wonderful to be able to work with her. And on the track you're going to play, she is singing, and on several others as well.
Excellent. Well, it's sounding good, so we'll look forward to hearing that at the end of the show. So, sort of moving on from your early years, going into the 70s, you were still playing in bands.
Still playing in bands, yes, and still very determined to do it professionally. I think that was always in my mind. I never really got away from that. But as a piano player, I went from playing piano to becoming a keyboard player. And the first few things I did were as a professional keyboard player.
Right.
And managed to get some session work. I can't quite remember how now. But in those days, it was pretty sexist business, I have to say. And I remember turning up to Marcus Music Studios with my keyboard. You took your own keyboard in those days. I'm banging on the door because I had a session there. And this guy came to the door and said, "Oh, you're a girl." And they made me play to see if I could play. I mean, I know it's only the 70s, but good Lord.
Sounds prehistoric.
Yeah, so I think my sort of feminist hackles started rising pretty early on in the 70s and stayed that way. And women talk about this business as being very sexist. I never found it that way because I just didn't do it. I wouldn't go there. So I always thought I was as good as anybody else.
Absolutely.
And I never had a problem in that way. Never did. I remember meeting Pretenders. What's her name?
Chrissy Hynde.
Chrissy Hynde.
Yeah.
Right. And I always used to feel terribly sort of flattered when people would compare my voice to her.
Yes.
And I always loved Brass in Pocket. It was
great.
Just like heaven for me. And I remember meeting her, and she said the same thing. If you transcend it, if you just go beyond it, it doesn't trouble you.
No.
And it never troubled me. I was very lucky.
So you were a session musician up to that point. Sort of going back a stage here, I believe that, you grew up in Surrey, basically. You decided to make the break and move to London full time. You decided that this is the way you were going. You were very single-minded in that sense.
Very much so.
This is my career now.
Very much so, yeah. When that happened, it was when I moved to London, and I remember living in Lavender Sweep in Clapham. And going to the phone box at the end of the road with lots of 10p's and calling record companies and saying, "Can I come and see you?" And in the end, they were sort of almost paying me to go away. I was so determined. And I remember my parents saying to me, "Okay, look, if you want to look for a recording contract, a recording deal, we'll help you out, but only for a month or two." And it only took me 2 months. And I was really, really pleased because it had taken me a long time before that to write the songs. I had developed as a songwriter whilst I was doing session work. And I'm so glad I had that time. First of all, my feet were on the ground. So I wasn't starstruck at all. And I wanted to do it professionally. I wanted to make records. Being famous or whatever wasn't really my goal. I wanted to be able to make albums. I wanted to be able to make lots of albums, please. That was what it was all about, to have a career.
Yes.
Because I'd grown up listening to career artists.
Yes.
So I didn't want to make a single and go away. To me, it was very important to do it properly and to have a career out of it, for it to be my job, the thing I did for a living. Yeah. And in the great tradition of all the jazz artists as well, who of course live on the edge, never have any money and all that. I didn't want to didn't want to live like that.
No.
But I also didn't care if I wasn't, madly rich and madly famous. I just wanted to have the career. And so when I started actually take it very seriously and making demos, I remember doing a production deal with Marcus Music where they'd let you, use the studio, and then you'd pay them back the studio time when you got your first advance.
Okay.
It was I don't think they do things like that anymore, but that worked for me.
Yeah.
I would find any way I could. I'd duck and dive and find my way around it. And I think when you have... It's funny, I see it in my son now, Henry, who... we can talk about Henry in a bit.
Oh, we will, yes.
He's not Henry, he's John Joseph Brill is his professional name. And that anyone who's heard of him as a musician will have heard him as John Joseph Brill, which I find very odd when I'm at his gigs and people go, "Oi, John." And I go, "That's Henry, that's not John." But John and Joseph are his two middle names for my father and his other grandfather. So he uses that professional name, which I like.
Yeah.
But I see it in him, that same sort of single-mindedness. You know, he's a musician. That's what he wants to do. And he describes himself as a musician, not as a pop act or a whatever. He's a musician. And so was I.
So how did it come to bear that basically around about 1982 you released sort of 3 one-off singles before the album?
Yes.
How did that happen? And why did that happen? As you were so intent on being an album artist.
Yeah. At the time, Henry's father, Wally Brill, he was my partner at the time. He worked, well, he didn't work at A&M Records then, but his musical partner, Robin Langridge, and he were very much like the Buggles. I mean, they were that kind of very electronic thing. And we decided to make these bits. It was very punk era sort of stuff. And yeah, I know what you're talking about. The first thing, you're talking about Tell Him, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I love that song.
It's a great version.
And they did this fantastic sort of electronic. There's some fantastic demos from that time. I mean, Cinderella, you know about. That's another one.
Sure.
There's another one called Electronic Toys,
which is
one of the
B-sides,
I think. Yeah. Another one called All Night TV.
Yeah.
You know, it's all very much that era.
It's very electronic, new wave.
Very electronic. And I absolutely loved it.
I think they're great.
And it was a great exercise in songwriting. You know, it showed me that was I asked to write in a genre, I could do it.
Yes.
And later on, when I signed to Rondell Music and began to co-write with people, that stood me in very good stead because I could, because of my diversity.
Yes.
I was able to write for anyone.
Yeah,
very
sure.
happily.
Yeah.
Which I think some songwriters find difficult, but I never did.
No.
Country song, whatever, rock and roll, don't mind,
electronic,
heavy metal, whatever.
Yes.
So Tell Him came about because of that. And in fact, Lulu's sister had done a version of it.
Okay.
In a studio in Croydon run by a guy called Matthew who played keyboards on Whitest Shade of Pale.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
we're talking, you know.
Yeah. Amazing.
And all these sort of these connections came up. Anyway, we went in there. We did a version of it. And when I signed to A&M, because Wally went to A&M, and I was, as I say, going to the end of the road with all these 10Ps all the time. And he said to me, I work at A&M, you can't come to A&M because we live together. It would look really, really bad. So A&M was off limits for me. Mm-hmm. But A&M came to me.
Right.
They had somehow heard through, I think, Charlie... Oh, what was his name? He's a wonderful man. Ran Oval Records. Wrote a book about jazz.
Not Charlie Gillett?
Charlie Gillett. I went to Oval and I played Tell Him to Charlie. He said, I don't think it's for us. But he played it to a guy called John at A&M Records.
Right.
Who rang me.
Okay.
And said, can you come in and see us? And I remember A&M at the time, they had these very sort of smart doors on all the A&R men's offices with kind of porthole windows in them. And Wally's office was third down, and I remember ducking under the porthole so he wouldn't see me. Anyway, that same afternoon, John took me downstairs to meet Derek Green, and they said, we're going to sign you.
Right.
And they put Tell Him out.
Yeah.
And I think it did a little bit, but not much. What was not known at the time, and which they found out quite quickly, was that I did write songs. And I remember hoping they weren't going to ask me because, obviously, when you write songs for yourself and you're in pretty much of a void, you don't know if they're any good. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, my God. And then eventually they said, OK, we've put a couple of singles out. We'd like to make an album with you, but we need to hear your songs. Right. And I went, really? And they said, yes.
So that gave you sort of the encouragement that you needed?
It did, but I was absolutely terrified because I thought they'd go, yeah, all right. But they went, these are great. Yeah. There's an album here. Yeah. And that's when I suddenly had that. I remember very clearly the feeling of that confidence going into me when I got that approval from A&M. Was
it your choice, Tell Him? Was that your choice of song?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. Absolutely loved it.
Sort of in the genre of the Locomotion that you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. It was that or the Locomotion. I wanted to do one or the other.
You could have beaten Kylie.
Yeah. It was like with Riders on the Storm. I wanted to do that or The End.
Wow.
You know, so I always had and it was that, the Little Eva's Locomotion or Tell Him. and tell him it's a great song.
I think it's a great version. It's a great electronic early 80s
Yeah,
pop
it lent
version of
itself
and
beautifully.
the video is something else as well. That
The video is something to behold.
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Yeah, quite something to
Sort
behold.
of a
What I
nod-
like is
yeah.
the girls with the sort of fluorescent lamps, but you can
Yes.
see the wires.
Oh, I didn't see the ones.
yeah.
Oh, I missed those.
Oh, they're there. I promise you. And the leg warmers.
Oh, the leg
Loving
warmers
the
are
leg
fantastic.
warmers.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, listening to those early songs that were put out as singles, it's incredible to me that they weren't hits in a way because they've got such incredible pop hooks.
It's funny you should say that. I for some reason I was looking through some old stuff the other day, and I put All Night TV on,
Yeah.
and it's great.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm really,
I know.
I love it.
And I think that's a theme that also, runs throughout your entire career. I think you're great at writing songs that stick in your head. I think
So. I mean, it's a funny thing. What I said to you earlier about wanting to have a career was true.
Yeah.
But it's funny when you write a lot of songs and you kind of listen to other people's songs and you think, "It's a job. I can do that." You can write hits. You can write pop songs, but some people have the hits and some necessarily don't. I mean, to me, the point was having hit albums, having albums that people knew about, having a career and some longevity and being remembered for my music. That was much more important to me than having a hit.
Sure. Okay, well, let's hear a couple of those early tracks. First of all, we're going to hear Tell Him, followed by Cinderella.
It's been that way for man since women were created to make love their destiny. Then why should true love be so complicated? Oh yeah? I know something about love. Gotta take his hand, show him what the world is made of. Kiss will prove it. If you want him to be always by your side, take his hand tonight. Swallow your foolish pride. You gotta tell him that you're never gonna leave.
That's Cinderella, one of the early singles by Annabel Lamb. I love the sort of... is it fair to say coquettish delivery in those early singles? I don't know. It's a different style from the first album, isn't it?
I think when we were talking about me growing up, it was always a question of either being a singer or an actress, or an author, or a playwright. So for me, it was quite a sort of whole thing that I always had that creative thing. I never quite knew where I wanted it to go, but clearly it took me into music. So that acting side of it, I did a lot of acting at school. And I think when I began, I was able to create personas with my voice and when I was singing. And to me, songs have always been narrative. And Cinderella, of course, is very narrative. And in those days, we loved doing anything that put a story around the song. So you remember the beginning is the skipping and the children and all of that. Yeah. And I think again we go back to Debussy's La Mer. If we can create a picture in someone's mind. And I think that does. Cinderella definitely does.
And, obviously with the dramatic influence, bearing in mind your love of David Bowie, also, again, comes full circle. The influences show there in terms of taking on different personas.
Very much so.
And is it okay to ask you again about that wonderful story you were talking about when you bumped into David Bowie once?
You mean when David Bowie bumped into me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I had never thought I would necessarily meet him. And I was saying to you, it was only a couple of days before, because I'm a massive Elvis Costello fan, that I was staying at Le Parc in LA. I know that sounds very posh, but anyway, I always felt very important when I stayed there. And my manager rang me in my room and said, quick, come down to the bar, Elvis Costello's here, because he knew I was a massive fan. And as I said to you, it's one of the few times in my life I've ever been completely dumbstruck. I opened my mouth to speak to him and nothing came out. And it was a couple of days later, I was driving down La Cienega Boulevard to go to A&M Studios. And I saw a Bentley coming the other way, very slowly. And I always drove very slowly in LA because I could never remember which was the correct side of the road to be on. But, when that's how it was. And I noticed this car sort of coming across towards me and I remember going through my head thinking, it must be someone British, because I had such a problem with that as well. Anyway, it just kept coming and eventually brushed my fender, because it all kind of happened in slow motion. You'd think I would have swerved, but I just kept going. Didn't see who was driving. And out got David Bowie and went, I'm most terribly sorry. And I went, oh, God. And he's much smaller. He was much smaller than I thought.
Yeah?
Yeah, I always thought he was terribly tall, but he wasn't. But it didn't make any difference to my absolute awe of him. And who better could you wish for to crash into your car? There was barely any damage, but obviously we had to... I can't remember.
Exchange details.
To be honest, I can't remember.
Possibly, but
it was his friend's Bentley, and his mate had let him drive.
Wow. Okay.
Stupidly. Anyway, I got to A&M. I went off, carried on to A&M. I didn't say who I was. I didn't. I mean, honestly, looking back, isn't it? You think afterwards. I should have said something.
Yeah.
Got to A&M and I just remember the press people swooping on this story. The minute I walked in, they went, really? We got to get a hold of this. Come and talk to us. And I was just absolutely in awe. And he'd always been,
Did you ever work with him?
No, I never did. I would love to have done, but I did see him live.
Excellent. So going back to the first album now, Once Bitten, released in early '83. The whole of the album shows very much your love of reggae. Very
much so. I did love reggae. And I think the thing about Once Bitten is it's a piece. It's very much a piece in itself, like a piece of theatre or a piece of... And also they say it's like your first kiss, your first album. You never have it again. It's a very, very special thing. I remember just going to the studio being absolutely so excited, And even today, actually, when I walk into a recording studio, it feels like hallowed ground to me. Even after all this time.
Really?
I feel so privileged to be one of the few people that gets to do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who want to.
Yeah.
And very few who get the chance. So to me, it's still a huge privilege to be able to make music, and it was then. And of course, this was my first time. I was in John Conger's studio in Barnes.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And we went in there to make the album, and reggae, I just loved it. I just absolutely loved it. And one of the few times I've ever got really excited about music was when I first heard reggae. I remember that.
Okay.
And I was very lucky in that I had Ricky Stevens Richie Stevens, who was my drummer at the time on drums, who was in Dennis Bivell's dub band. So
Okay.
it sounded very, very authentic.
Yes.
So
yes.
we had, it was the real thing. It wasn't someone playing at it.
No.
It wasn't someone being copycat reggae. It was the real thing.
Yeah.
And that whole band, well, Ricky and Steve and all the other, Steve played fretless, and I mean, it was just a wonderful band.
Sure.
And it was authentic sounding.
Yeah.
You know, and no one ever said, you know, oh yeah, reggae. It was the real thing.
Yeah.
And it was influenced, obviously, rather than being the real thing. But I absolutely loved that album. And of course, there was jazz in there as well. It was a little bit of everything that I'd
Yeah.
always loved.
Yeah, and even take a track like Heartland, an Adrian Borland
yeah.
song, who was in the sound. And I
Yep.
believe was he quite a good friend of yours also?
He was. Wally Bill, who produced me and who's
Yeah.
my partner at the time, produced the sound,
Mhm,
one of their albums. And I loved that, you know, thing that Adrian had that reminded me of Bowie, reminded me
Yeah.
of Jim Morrison, you know, that thing, you know, that wonderful voice that
Yeah.
they do. And actually, Henry does now. But he was just such a powerful singer. And Heartland I just loved that song.
It's great.
Love
And again,
that
that
song.
shows a different side also, you know, in amongst the album, you've got all these diverse influences coming in.
Well, again, for me, it was about the songs.
Yeah.
You know, I was never averse to doing a cover
Yeah,
of someone else's song if I liked the song.
yeah,
You know, it wasn't about, I'm not doing covers, I do my own songs. If I liked the song, I wanted to do it.
yeah. And there's a wonderful performance online of the whole band there on the Old Grey Whistle Test
Oh,
at the
yeah,
time, and that's
that's
a
brilliant.
great performance.
That was one of my first TV shows, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to hear a track from the album called Missing, and that was written about a contemporary film of the time
Yes,
called
it was,
Missing,
yes.
with Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek.
Indeed it was.
So I believe also that you were very much influenced by film soundtracks as well.
Very
people
influenced
like
by
John Carpenter.
John Carpenter. And film in general.
Yeah.
I still I'll watch films back to back. I watched Arrival the other day and was just absolutely taken up by it. You know, film for me, you know, if you watch the scene in E.T. where he dies and Elliot cries, without the music, you won't cry. If you put the music on, you'll cry.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the point of music. It does something to you emotionally.
Sure.
And if you put it together with image, you're in a win-win.
Yeah.
You know, and so film has always affected me hugely. And I always found myself writing songs that came from films I'd seen.
Because there was actually an instrumental on that album called Snake Plissken.
Pliskin.
Pliskin. I'm so sorry, so sorry about that. But
Snake
yeah, that's
Plissken.
the protagonist from Escape from New York,
That's
isn't it?
right,
Yeah.
yes. And John Carpenter was, at the time, you know, very of his time.
Yes,
And I was just beginning to play at that time
yes,
polyphonic keyboards, which totally changed my life.
Yeah.
To be able to play strings on a keyboard,
Yeah.
thank you very much, I can be an orchestra, was fantastic. And he very much did that with his soundtracks. And, you know, I think all of us at the time were John Carpenter fans here.
So so we're going to hear "Missing," which is one of the more reggae-influenced tracks from that album, and followed by the hit single "Riders on the Storm." Now, tell me how Ray Manzarek came to actually play on that track.
Okay, it was a very strange thing that happened. You know, they say there's no such thing as a coincidence. Well, I actually began to believe that when this happened. I was signed to A&M UK, and A&M US had someone who worked there called David Anderley, who's no longer with us, sadly, who had produced everyone from Judy Collins, right? I mean, you know, he was amazing, and also worked in the film department at A&M. He was a fantastic sort of statesman of A&M. And he got in touch with A&M UK and said, I love this girl. And I was, of course, terribly flattered that this very important man thought I was lovely. And he said he wanted to produce me. And Wally said, no, I produce her. So he said, all right, I'll co-produce her with you.
Okay.
So we agreed to work with him. We had come up with the idea of doing a Doors song. I think Wally told him this on the phone. He said, oh, I'm working with Ray at the moment. Ray Manzarek at the time was making his Carmina Burana album in LA. And he said, well, bring her out here. She can meet Ray and ask him if he'll play on it.
Wow.
And I went, oh, my God. I mean, this, for me, was like, manna from heaven. To have a member of the Doors play.
Sure.
Anyway, we went out there. We met with David, and we went to the studios. What's that the big tower studio in LA, near the one. And we went there, and he was in the studio there. Next door to him was Frank Sinatra Jr. making an album, and next door to that was Roy Rogers making an album. And it was amazing. It was Capitol Records, the Capitol Studios, that big round building. And of course, I walked in this. I was like, oh my God, this is like history. Yeah. There's a basketball court in the basement, and it's just amazing. Anyway, the idea was for me to go in there, and I got to see Ray making some of the album, and then got to meet him and ask him. He said, "You ask him." So I said, "Okay." So I said, would you be willing to play the solo again?
Yeah, again.
As you did on the original.
Yeah.
And he said, I remember him saying to me, well, you'll have to teach it to me. I've forgotten it.
Oh.
And we actually sat down. Because, of course, I could play it. I'd learned it.
Yeah.
And I had to show him
You
the
were
notes.
teaching him.
Yeah. And then I remember saying to him, how do you think, because it was a member of the Doors, I wanted to make sure I wasn't offending anyone. I said, how do you think Jim Morrison would feel about me doing this? And he said, well, I'll ask him. And I went, I'm sorry? He said, I'll ask him. I went, okay. And we all went home for the night. And I said to David Anderley, what's that? He said, oh, don't worry about it. And he came back in the next day and he said, Jim says it's okay. I said, really? He said, yeah, we still talk. I mean, this was him, he reckoned he still had contact with Morrison in the beyond.
Well, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope he did.
I
hope that was true.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did that version of it, which of course was very different.
Yeah, very different.
But he loved it. I remember Ray saying, "This is fabulous."
Yeah, very contemporary, and of course a big hit.
Do you know? It's funny when we were in the studio at the time. The engineer in Capitol Studios, a guy called Joe Ciccarelli, and I remember him coming up to me halfway through the session, going, "This is a hit." And there's something about, I've heard other artists say that. We'd done the rhythm track at the Townhouse Studios in London before we went out there. And I don't know, there was something about the sound of that record. And in fact, Dave Dix, who later produced this album that's coming out now, and the one before, produced Flow with me and co-wrote it with me, said that he had played Rise on the Storm as a test for speakers.
Oh, wow.
Way before I ever knew him.
Right.
When he used to do gigs. He put it on as the test for the speakers at gigs. And he said there was something about the dynamic of that record that was so good.
It is sonically...
It's sonically really
a
fab,
great production,
And when we used to listen to it in the studio, I think, there's something about this. And of course, Ray would tell you it was Jim.
Jim's influence from the other side. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we should hear this now. So this is Annabel Lamb's version of Riders on the Storm.
riders on the snow. Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown, like a dog without a bone, an actor out alone. Riders on the storm, yeah. Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm.
Is Annabel Lamb, who worked as a session musician prior to the release of her first LP, Once Bitten. She's about to perform two numbers from it, one song inspired by the film Missing, and then Heartland, written by Adrian Borland of The Sound, who joins her on guitar. Would you welcome Annabel Lamb?
I hear the beating of a tin drum. Is this the shape of things to come? I hear the beating of a tin drum. Is this the shape of things to come? The curfew's on, the street is bare. I'm looking for you everywhere. I feel my heart, it's loud with fear. It's getting late and you're not here. I hear a shot, I hold my ears. My eyes are crying silent tears. I hear the beating of a tin drum. Is this the shape of things to come? I hear the beating of a tin drum. Is this the shape of things to come? It's after 10, they shoot on sight. The dog patrols are out tonight. I hide in doorways as they pass and crouch amongst the broken glass. The city cowers in the dark. I see a glow above the park. I hear the beating of a tin drum. Is this the shape of things to come? Say goodbye, say goodbye. Say goodbye, say goodbye. Say goodbye, say goodbye. There's no time to cry. Say goodbye. Say goodbye. Say goodbye. Say it. Say it. Say goodbye. There's no time. There's no time left to cry. I hear the beating of a tin drum. Say goodbye. I hear the beating of a tin drum. Goodbye. I hear the beating of a tin drum. Say goodbye. I hear the beating of a tin drum. Goodbye.
Thank you. That was Missing. This is my current single, Heartland.
Setting out, city in your sights, want an overview of the underground. The pressure's off, so your feelings rise, they gotta hit that peak before they crash back down. Gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe in the heartland. Gotta believe in the heartland. All mixed up in the heartland heat, a chemistry of commotion and style. You're thrown in, you gotta lose yourself before you find yourself back in exile. Gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe in the heartland. Gotta believe in the heartland. Gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe in the heartland. 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 Gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe in the heartland. Gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe. Gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe. Gotta believe, gotta believe, gotta believe.
So a year later comes The Flame, perhaps a more self-assured album. The production is punchier and going against the grain of the mid-80s period. Annabel insisted on live backing tracks, testament to the fact that most of the vocals were recorded outside due to limited studio space. And from that album came two singles, So Lucky in Bed, and this one, the brilliant title track, The Flame.
Dreams can be so good tonight. Watching you, darling, a silhouette. Your lips will cover mine and silence me. We can be silent until we scream. Take the cigarette from my mouth. Pull my hair to see if it is real. If I should falter, your legs are strong for me. We can be strong till we have spent the see and feel the ever-spreading wings. Love is the spark that lights the flame. Baby, this flame is all we need. Dance like a dervish just to please me. Dance in the heat, dance in the heat so that you glow. Then come to me and breathe your fire. We can make fire with what we know.
It's criminal that wasn't the commercial success that Rises on the Storm was, but what a strong single it was. And around that time, Annabel was making a lot of TV appearances, and the iconic sleeve of that album and single were very prevalent at the time, featuring her newly shorn blonde spiky locks. And she was telling me earlier that the hairdresser responsible for that new look tried it out on Annabel before he tried it out on Annie Lennox. So, Annabel got there first. And that track, The Flame, very much showing her Bowie influences, I think. Don't worry, Annabel is still here. She's just popped out for a coffee. Like Mr. Bowie, she then had her Germanic period in the mid-80s, leading to the album When Angels Travel in 1986. And from that album, here's a track called African Affair.
The moon's so red, they're hunting in pairs tonight. We can hear in the bush, we can watch from high hills down to the river. We're bending so low to drink, voyeurs in every clearing, watching from the trees. Here we travel in the old way. Here we mount upon the open air, holding set high we are downwind, lost in an African affair. The sky is so clear, we're playing with fire tonight. We can sleep at high noon, we can find food at dawn, up to the high ground. We're leaving the plains behind. heat waves in the breeze. Here we travel in the old way, traveling here we mount upon the open air, traveling holding set high, we are downward, lost in an African affair. Here we travel in the old way, traveling here we mount upon the open air, traveling holding set high, we are downward, lost in an African affair. African affair. African affair. African When angels travel, you can feel them on the wind. Heaven just takes their hands and guides them. And as they fly, so the good weather's crowding in. Their wings may brush your face while sleeping. When angels travel, when angels travel, travel. When angels travel, when angels travel, travel. When angels travel, they leave feathers on the lawn. Look up sometimes and you can see them. They paint the sky we see at sunset and at dawn. Their wings may brush your face while sleeping. When angels travel, when angels travel, travel. When angels travel, when angels travel, travel. When angels travel, when angels travel, travel. When angels travel, the sky cries. When on the horizon, find the hero, find the hero, find the When angels travel, they make space between the clouds to let the sun break through behind them. A shooting star is is just a toy that's fallen to the ground. Their wings may brush your face while sleeping. When angels travel, when angels travel, travel, when angels travel, the sky. When angels travel, travel, when angels travel, when angels travel, travel, when angels travel, the sky
It's around this time that Annabel is living in Germany, and a year later comes the album Brides. Again, a very diverse affair, obviously. And this particular track shows the jazz influences that she drew upon from her early life, and her love of Oscar Peterson, and I think showing echoes of Chet Baker here with the lovely trumpet. This is really atmospheric and brooding, and it's called Lonely House.
At night when everything is quiet, the old house seems to breathe a sigh. Sometimes I hear a neighbor snoring. Sometimes I hear a baby cry. Sometimes I hear a staircase creaking. Sometimes a distant telephone. Then the quiet settles down again. The house and I are all alone. Lonely house, lonely me, funny with so many neighbors. How lonely you can be. Lonely street, lonely town. Funny, you can be so lonely with all these folks around. I guess there must be something I don't comprehend. Sparrows have companions, even stray dogs find a friend. The night for me is not romantic. Unhook the stars and take them down. I'm lonely in this lonely house, in this lonely town. must be something I don't comprehend. Sparrows have companions, even stray dogs find a friend. The night for me is not romantic. Unhook the stars and take them down. I'm lonely in this lonely house, in this lonely town.
Okay, so that was a track from Brides. That was Lonely House, and I think that's it's lovely. It shows the jazz influences that you very much grew up on. And also on that same album was a cover of Sweet Jane. So Velvet Underground, Lou Reed, one of your early influences?
Yeah, I absolutely love Lou Reed. And Sweet Jane, that version of it just worked out so well. And in fact, it was, again, an odd coincidence because it was a big hit in France. And I'd never broken the French market. And they, of course, the French adore Lou Reed. I didn't know that, but it's a big deal over there. And yes, absolutely love Lou Reed. And it goes with the whole David Bowie thing and, you know, all of that era.
Yeah.
And Sweet Jane was probably my favourite of those songs.
Suitcase in my hand, Jack's in his corset, Jane is in a vest. Hey honey, I'm in a rock and roll band, riding in a back at you. Those were different times. They studied rules of verse, and the ladies rolled their eyes. Sweet Jane, Sweet Jane, Sweet Jane. Jack, he is a banker. Jane, she is a clerk. Both of them save their money when they come home from work. Here by the fire, the radio does play little classical music, March of the Wooden Soldier. You can hear Jack say, Sweet Jane, Sweet Jane, Sweet Jane. Sweet Jane. Some people like to go out dancing. Other people like us, we gotta work. And see some evil mothers, they'll tell you life's just made out of dirt. Women never really fail, all the villains always lick their eyes. Children are the only ones who blush, and life is just to die. Anyone who had a heart, they wouldn't go around and break it. Anyone could play a part, they wouldn't
You're listening to the Annabel Lamb special of Steve Jesson's Retromix on K2K Radio. That's her version of Sweet Jane. In 1988 came the album Justice, and 2 tracks from that now, which I think contrast nicely. Latterly, the beautiful ballad Refugee, but firstly, this is Rock, Paper, Scissors, Matches.
When I was a child, we played a game at school. It was silly, really. We get together in a group and make the symbols with our hands. A rock, piece of paper, scissors and match. It was all about what destroys what. It was about competition and victory, defeat and destruction. I've asked friends from all over the world about this game. Children seem to play it everywhere. It makes me worry.
Rock, paper, scissors, matches.
Rock, paper, scissors, matches.
Rock, paper, scissors, matches.
Rock, paper, scissors, matches. See the world, learn a trade. In Hanoi there were snakes and cages beside the dinner tables. You could buy them. Daggers and fingers, fingers and daggers. See the world, learn a trade. Lying flat beside the barricades. Waiting, 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 waiting for the big noise.
Rock, paper, scissors, matches.
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 Rock, paper, scissors, matches. Paper, scissors, matches.
Rock, 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 paper, scissors, matches. Rock crushes scissors and matches. Paper covers rock. Scissors cut paper and matches. Matches burn paper. When whaling ships go out to sea, the men drink whiskey so that they can fire their harpoons straight into her lungs. If their boat capsizes, she will, even in her death throes, float them to the surface on her back. Save them so that they can kill again. Save them so that they can kill again. Save them so that they can kill again. Save them so that they can kill again.
This is K2K's Retromix with Steve Jesson.
Don't you cry, your head. You and I, little one, can smile instead. From the valley to the mountain, from the desert to the sea, you are not like other children. You are a refugee. Don't you cry, little one, there's shelter here. Lift your eyes, see the sun, dry your tears. From the valley to the mountain, from the desert to the sea, you are not like other children. You are a refugee. To the mountain, from the desert to the sea, you are not like other children. You are a refugee. You are a refugee. You are not like other children.
Okay, so we've heard a track from Justice now, so let's move on to Flow. Now, there was quite a gap after that, but this first came out in 1993, and this is the lead single, Wild World.
Sun is going down, baby sleeping. It's time to get on the road. It had to come around, no time for weeping. This time I just gotta go. Into the wild world. To the wild world, traveling into the light, out in the wild world. Cowbells are riding their dreams. Some man is sitting there, playing at cowboys. They ride you up in the dark. Go so far and then I hear the call, boy. I'll take a horse I can trust. Into the wild world, running through the night. Into the wild world, traveling into the night. Out in the wild world. into the wild world, running up through the night, into the wild world, running into the night, out in the wild world. Cowgirls are riding, rolling and riding. Cowgirls are riding their dreams.
So that was the single from the Flow album, Wild World, released, reissued in 1997. So that was your first collaboration with Dave Dix, I believe, Annabel.
Was indeed. We were put together by Rondell Music to write songs,
Mhm.
and then we got together on a personal level as well,
Okay.
and worked together for a good 20 years. Great partnership. We co-wrote, and he played 12 string, and he engineered and produced. So we had a really good working relationship going on, and in fact, Flow is right up there in one of my favourite albums. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that single as well. I think the whole album as well is it's very positive. It's very uplifting.
Yeah, it's got a lovely feel to it. Wild World has what I call vistas, you know, that sort of
Yeah.
looking into the distance thing.
Yeah.
And it totally engenders the Americana
Mhm.
side of things, which I absolutely love.
Mhm.
I grew up with at school with a book called the Fellowship Songbook,
Mhm.
which had those American folk songs in it about campfires and cowboys, and I just love that stuff. And of course, when I first heard James Taylor and
Yeah.
Sweet Baby James and all those kind of songs really, and really influenced me. It was a great joy for me. So I remember writing Wild World standing in the hallway of our house in Hammersmith and going, yeah, that's definitely a song.
Yeah.
It's a song. And we made a video with me on a horse.
Yes,
I mean,
it
you know,
yeah.
it all worked. It all
Yeah,
worked.
the video just evokes Americana, doesn't it? I think it's
Yeah,
a
love
lovely,
America-
lovely video.
I love
to that.
Americana.
Yeah. So after that, we should just mention that Dave Dix was actually a member of Black.
He was indeed.
Yes.
And very sadly, we lost Colin, as you know.
Yeah.
But yes, he was. And I didn't know that when I met him, actually. But he'd done a great... He also worked with Alison Moyet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Co-wrote and co-produced a song with her called This House, which is on the Alpha.
I remember that single. Yeah. Very nice. So, if it's not too much of a personal question, why was there such a long gap after Flow?
Okay, I think because both of us were doing other things. He went from being a studio musician with me and doing sort of local gigs to being a touring sound engineer.
Okay.
He decided to go off on tour. Which he'd always wanted to do. I'd already done it. I can remember when he first went on tour, he was saying to me, "Ooh, come and have a look in the tour bus." And I went, "I've been there, it's all right." But no, that's what he did. So that's why he went away.
Right.
And didn't sort of do that. And then we got back together with Roy Dodds and all the people, you know, Graham Henderson and all those wonderful folk to make this album. So,
Excellent. Yeah. So the album is Blessed by the Songs. It will be coming out later this year.
Hopefully,
We
yes.
don't have a release date just yet, but we hope it will be followed by a tour in the autumn.
Hope so.
Yeah. And what we're going to do is we're going to close this whole interview. But before we do that, before we hear the exclusive play of one of the tracks, just tell me a little bit about Jane Sibrey. I believe you've been working with her recently as well.
Yes, I've known Jane for a very long time. I first heard her music when I was pregnant with Henry back in 1988. Absolutely loved her. And met her, finally, when I was living in Hammersmith later on. And in fact, we decided to work together then and wrote a couple of songs. Haven't seen her for a very long time, but basically, I went to one of her shows recently in London with my friend Michael, and we might be touring together in the autumn. So
excellent.
I might be, you know, going out live with her, which I'd absolutely love to do.
That's great. So let's close with one of the tracks from your new album. It features Kiki D on backing vocals, which is lovely.
Yes.
And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Annabel. It really has.
Thanks for having me, Stu. It's been lovely to be here and talk about the album. Really.
And I wish you the best of luck with the album release and the tour later on in the year. We're going to close the show with one of the songs from Blessed by the Songs. I'm going to pick out the first line because I think it sums up your career as a whole. I still haven't stopped searching yet.
That's true. It does sum it up,
I think that's
doesn't
very apt.
it? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Annabel. This is This Time.
Don't know why, but I haven't stopped searching yet. I don't seem to be able to get enough of it. Thousands of new moons fatten up to full. I'm still sitting here trying to explain myself to you. Even I don't know what keeps me from sitting still. Some great desire to harness the power of my will. Keep on plowing towards the cold dawn of the new and untried. We can all sleep and dream about the wonder of just being alive. We're just being alive. But this time I'm gonna make you proud. This time I'm gonna shout it loud. This time you're gonna see me shining through. There's always a leaf that holds water like a jewel. And that's how I feel sometimes when I look at you. There's always a feeling in your chest when you hold a child. Always reminds me of how far we get away from real and wild. Just give me real and wild. But this time I'm gonna make you smile. This time I'm gonna go that last mile. This time you're gonna see me shining through. You're gonna see me shining through. You're gonna see me shining. Sometimes you get to me enough that I come clean. I'm not self-conscious about the mess that I have been. You know me so well, there's no hiding from you. Sometimes you look at me and I know you understand those things I do, those crazy things I do. So this time I'm gonna make you proud. This time I'm gonna shout it loud. This time you're gonna see me shining through. This time I'm gonna make you smile. This time I'm gonna go that last mile. This time you're gonna see me shining through. You're gonna see me shining through. You're gonna see me. You're gonna see me shine.
Thank you so much, Annabel Lamb, for a wonderful interview. That was a track from her forthcoming album, Blessed by the Songs, called This Time, featuring Kiki D on backing vocals. So I'm going to round off the show with an extract from that wonderful piece of classical music that set her off on a career in music at a very young age, Debussy, La Mer. And why don't you see what images this conjures up for yourself? Steve Jesson's Retromix is back in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.